We're all born into sin, but that does not mean we all automatically burn in hell. A fish is born in water and knows no difference between water and any other reality. That's exactly how we're born into sin. We know no difference, and therefore we don't know how to get out of it. And we might not like being wet, but we'll blame someone else for being wet. The good news is that we can learn to become free from our birth surroundings. And by being mentored in the right ways and squired like any knight would, we can be free of that sin. In my understanding, therefore, babies when they die don't burn in hell. Children when they die don't burn in hell. Because there's a concept actually in the Bible called the age of accountability. There's sometime at adolescence that we become accountable for our actions. That's about puberty, somewhere in that time. That's when we normally send kids out to be squired by a knight to learn how to live, or squired by a blacksmith to learn how to make a sword, and so on. I'm going back in time because I think those are analogies we can all connect with. It is at the age of accountability that we tend to move from the umbrella of our parents and our existing childhood families, and we try to find our own way. And it's at that age of accountability, we even feel it in our hearts at times, that there's a new beginning. We are being accountable for our actions. Even in the laws of our nation, there's a difference between juvenile court and adult court. It is during that time that if you're brought up in a faith, often we lose it. It is during that time that if you didn't have a faith, you might find it. That's one of the many landmark moments in our life, and it's biblically sound that is because that's our age of accountability, when our spirits reach the point, our brain and everything's matured to the point that we can live at that level. And at that point in time, we can ask God the Father to live in us and through us in order to help us navigate through the difficulties of our upcoming life, as well as our everlasting life that should not be difficult if we ask Him into our hearts to act as our judge and act as our defense. You see, when we die, and we're to be one with God, but before we can do that, we must die to sin. The God that I know and understand is a God that cannot be in the presence of sin. In the same way that a nugget of gold that is wrapped in paper, if thrown in the fire, the paper would burn away while the nugget of gold remains. We're all born eternal, but we're surrounded in sin and by sin. And as God moves, He can't be in presence of that sin. That is why we must die to be at one with God. But upon our death now, what will happen is there's a one that will blame us and accuse us and try to get us condemnation, the same condemnation that he and his demons and their inheritance has made for themselves as a choice of their actions. But the good news is we have legal counsel. The spiritual world that we do not see, the invisible world, is very legalistic in many ways. And when you ask Jesus, yes, Yeshua ben Yahweh, there's many individuals named Jesus. Jesus is a very common name, but Yeshua ben Yahweh, the Son of God, is a very specific God. So when you ask Yeshua to be your legal advisor, your lawyer, your defender, to wash clean those sins in your life, then He can act as your defender. And as He acts as your defender, you're then guaranteed a place in heaven. Now you can choose to accept this legal counsel. You can choose to deny the legal counsel. As I said before, God's a gentleman. He's not going to force you to do anything. We are living as eternal beings right now. In our flesh, we're eternal beings, but the sin part of our lives will die. The eternal part of our lives will live on. And God has created a new room, a new place. He's given us, let's say, a house, and we can accept the keys to this house. Often we might not like the conditions of gaining access to those keys. You might say, well, I don't want that heaven because I think that I'm told that there's some religious thing I must do or some craziness this man made. And because I don't want to do those things, I don't want those keys. And that's fine. If that's your choice, that's your choice. If you make up your own heaven, it is my hope that you'll be able to fulfill that heaven on your own strength. If not, then you would be looking at a creator that had created that heaven for you, that you can inherit by simply asking for the keys and giving permission to gain access to the house. And getting that permission is very simple, and they're not half the catches that often we're led to believe.